15th parish of Jamaica is now called to order. I'm going to ask Member Miller, our in-house chaplain, to lead us in prayer.
Father, we give thee thanks and praises for everything that you have done. You have guided us safely here to have this meeting, to plan for your people. We ask that you be with the minds of the people, that you ensure that we move together in one accord, and that you'll be with us and come by here is our prayer in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you very much, Member Miller. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Mr.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Golding Campbell will be late, not absent. Okay.
We have apologies from Member Daly and Member Chuck.
Sir Chair, apology for Senator Williams, who is away on government business.
Okay, and Member Davis is on his way, as well as Member Leslie Campbell. Good evening, colleague members of this committee, members of staff here at Gordon House, our resource personnel from the different agencies who are in attendance with us. We have in attendance, I believe, representatives from NEPA, representatives from National Works Agency. We have, I believe, the Ministry of Transport and Mining. We have the National Water Commission. I believe the Ministry of Health should be joining us shortly. And of course, the lead ministry, we have the team from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development in attendance via Zoom. And I believe most importantly, special recognition must be made of the residents of Portmore who are tuning in, participating, and by extension, Jamaica persons having interest in this matter, living within the confines of our country and within the diaspora. Members, to this afternoon we are gathered to discuss and to deliberate on what may be one of the biggest decisions to be made in modern Jamaica. That is to examine the proposal to establish Portmore as the 15th parish of our beautiful and resilient country. We should all remind ourselves, though, that the last time a parish was named in this country, it was in 1867. That was the same year that Jamaica became a crown colony. And, those of us who are creatures of history will appreciate the fact that at that time, when Jamaica became a crown colony in 1867, governance resided within the borders of the United Kingdom. And so, this morning, or this afternoon, this consultation, I believe, is very important, because in 1867, when you looked at the population of Jamaica then, consisting of mostly former slaves, we were just under 300,000 persons living on the island. Today, to 2021, we have somewhere around 3 million persons living in this country, and maybe another 3 million Jamaicans living outside of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I believe that we are presented here with a glorious opportunity where once again we might be able to bestow that privilege of parish status on a section of our country that has contributed continuously and tremendously to human, social, and the financial health and wealth of our nation. As we all know, many processes in Jamaica are often seen as being handled politically. To ensure this process was not tainted as such, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honourable Andrew Michael Holness, and our Minister of Local Government, Desmond McKenzie, announced the idea in Parliament and then immediately sought to set up a joint select committee to deliberate on this issue. The committee, which has been meeting since December of last year, is made up of representatives of both the Senate and the lower house and includes persons from both political parties. In addition to the deliberations amongst ourselves, advertisements have been placed in newspapers and on social media to garner the input from citizens as well as from agencies and other entities that work or have an interest in Portmore. To date, the majority of the submissions is in support of Portmore gaining parish status, or see no reason for Portmore to not receive such a status. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, this evening we are gathered here to take the deliberations to an even higher level. We are here to listen to the views of the citizens of Portmore. In fact, just looking at examining the submissions to date from the general public and the representation or the submissions coming from the different government entities, quite a number of the issues or concerns raised were addressed to some extent, if not fully addressed. And so this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, we are here to listen to the views of the citizens of Portmore and, Jamaicans all over. Parish status will continue to enhance the process of local self-governance, which began when Portmore gained municipality status in 2003. And those of us, myself and Member Campbell Rodriguez, who lived in Portmore at that time and the period leading up to the establishment of the municipality of Portmore, remember the work of such stalwarts such as George Lee, the first mayor of Portmore. He and other members of Portmore started the process, and we must give credit where credit is due. He started a process of autonomy and self-governance in Portmore. And as a result of his advocacy and others, the municipality of Portmore was created in 2003. Some persons looked at it as a pilot. Others saw it as an opportunity for more autonomy, self-governance, and decision-making that are more pertinent to the area that we call Portmore. Portmore, ladies and gentlemen, is a unique place. It is filled with people who worked hard and pay their local and national taxes. People who care for their properties and its value. In fact, if you look at the people who live or persons living in Portmore, you will recognize that they make up a significant portion of the working public. The pandemic that we are currently in forced us to embrace technology, and persons living in Portmore were at the forefront. A lot of persons living in Portmore work in the public sector, and then had to work from home to ensure that the wheels of government, the wheels of this country continue to turn. And we must commend them. We must commend them for that. And the reason why I spoke about the pandemic is the mere fact that it forced us as a country, and especially those persons in Portmore, to embrace technology even more. A lot of us did not contemplate or expect to embrace technology that we have done. Most of us used technology for social media purposes. the pandemic forced us to become innovative, use technology to create opportunities for ourselves, use technology for educational purposes, use technology for business opportunities, use technology to work. And the Prime Minister stated sometime last year that he envisioned Portmore to be the first smart parish in Jamaica, in the English-speaking Caribbean, and in fact, let me say, Latin America and the Caribbean. We have a glorious opportunity before us, ladies and gentlemen. And notwithstanding the fact that, we may not be able to address all the concerns, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that the mere fact that we have opened up this committee via town hall meeting to listen to the issues, concerns, and see how best we can address those concerns, I believe it's a positive for our country. So, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I will, at this time, allow for any members of a committee to make any suggestion, input before we open the town hall meeting to the other participants.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Member.
Yes. Firstly, let me say good evening to my colleagues and to the citizens of Portmore who are joining us this evening, as well as the support team. Mr. Chairman, as someone who sat in the first council when Portmore became a municipality, there was much excitement at that time around Portmore being a municipality. And I feel a similar excitement about Portmore becoming a parish. I feel a similar excitement to Portmore becoming a parish. And, it is good that we're hearing what citizens want and what their opinion would be on the matter, because I think it is important to be guided. But I think also, Mr. Chairman, that we should find a way to disseminate the information, or at least some of the information that was passed to us by some of the agencies and the entities that provide service to Portmore, so that the people within the jurisdiction can realize that the status of parish will actually be good for them and their families and their properties in Portmore.
Thank you very much, Member Campbell Rodriguez. We have, let me use this opportunity to recognize the first participant. Angela Ennis Cooper. Yes. So let Miss Angela Ennis Cooper, you may make your point or ask a question. Claude Hamilton. Claude Hamilton. Participants who wish to participate can indicate on their screen by raising their hand so that we can identify you and allow you to participate.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman.
Good afternoon, Councillor Hamilton.
Okay, am I being heard clearly?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Just turn down your background music a bit for me, please.
Okay, let me move. Yes. Yes. It's good for this opportunity and this historic occasion for us as community members to have a voice. I just want to ask, if I'm permitted, is this a time for questions?
Go ahead, Councillor.
I'm just wondering, the boundaries of Portmore. As we know, Portmore is a landlocked residential community. I'm just wondering if this is the opportunity. You know, in 2014, it was proposed that the boundaries be extended, and that was taken to court and was rescinded. I'm just asking now if the boundaries of Portmore will be extended. Why am I asking this question? Because Portmore is landlocked by residential communities, and there's a lot of amenities that we believe that a parish would need to have. And although Portmore would have the space, it's just where to put them. No community would want certain amenities next door to their communities. So I'm just asking if that is a consideration of the Joint Select Committee for that to happen.
Member, Councillor Hamilton, a very valid question. The process of establishing a parish speaks specifically to the area which will be a part of that parish. Also, it identifies the area that will be considered designated as the capital or center, city center of that parish. If you look at the Act of 1867, a very simple act that defined the boundaries of the 14 parishes that were created then, and also the area that formed the parish. You know, I am sure that if and when the act should come to Parliament, designating Portmore as the 15th parish, that it would include the boundaries of that parish as well.
With your permission, I'm not so clear in respect to that response that Mr. Hamilton just asked. As I understand the question, there is currently a 2003 boundary for Portmore. All right? That is the boundary that is now recognized. There was a proposal for a boundary adjustment in 2010, which would extend the 2003 boundary to the west. Essentially to the west, not much to the north. Mainly to the west, or northwest in that corridor. The question, as I understand it, is that the proposal being considered, is it within the context of the existing 2003 boundary, or is it in respect to some other new boundary, whether it's a 2010 or some other boundary? That is what I understand the question to be. And therefore your answer wasn't too clear. Your
I want to lend some more clarity, but I'm going to allow Member Warmington to join us.
Member Jackson, are you sure it's 2010?
Well, 2011. The exercise was done in 2010.
No.
Or thereabout. No,
2010. No.
At the time,
All right, 2010, we're government. It was done during a time while Mr. Ascot was minister, and Philip Paul was House leader. He wasn't House leader in 2011 or 2010. He could have been House leader starting January 2012. So not that period they're speaking about. And the issue, remember that you guys went about it the wrong way. Even though I advised.
The member can't be addressing a fellow colleague as you guys. That is totally unparliamentary.
Well, Fitz-Jackson's group then. All right, take it back. You guys, Fitz-Jackson's group went about it the wrong way, even though I advised you. And advised your minister, that's not the way to go about it. You want to know if it's going to be the 2003 boundaries.
Or some other boundaries.
And if your own sense will tell you, her intelligence, it couldn't be 2003 because you're tempted to move. It has to include the areas that are not part of Portmore. Because, for example, the Caribbean Estate, you don't expect that to stay in St. Catherine, do you?
No, answer the question.
Member Warmington, let me just answer the question. This committee's deliberation is not about boundaries. It's more about giving a report to Parliament after examining the proposal to establish a 15 parish. Member Jackson, allow me. Yes, so allow me, let me finish. And the boundary of Portmore, Member Jackson and Member Warmington, as you are senior parliamentarians to me, know for a fact that the boundary for Portmore, the parish of Portmore, is a prerogative of the Minister of Local Government. If we should decide as a parliament to designate Portmore as a parish, it is a prerogative of the Minister of Local Government to outline that area or identify that area to be included or be the parish. You know that. So we don't need to I believe, Member Jackson, we have answered the question
no,
from Mr.
I'm
Hamilton.
not clear on that answer at all, Mr. Chairman.
I could have been more explicit than that, Member Jackson.
No, I'm not clear on that. The answer given is certainly not clear. The question, as I understand it, which will be pertinent to all residents in Portmore, for it, I'd cite the example you gave of Caribbean Estate. If you speak about a boundary establishment, it must be within the confines of some prescribed boundary. Otherwise, a decision would be nebulous at best at this time. So the question is quite pertinent. If you are contemplating it, what boundary? Is it that the answer is that the new boundary is not yet determined? So nobody in some parts of Portmore will not know as of now if it is designated a parish, whether they would fall within or outside that boundary, such as Caribbean Estate.
Member Jackson, I am sure, and you are as well confident that all the current communities that reside in Portmore will be a part, the Portmore parish, if we should go that route.
It is where the boundaries are that determine whether or not you fall within Portmore. So to ask me that question is really far-fetched. You have to establish the boundaries, and then you say those within the boundary would fall within that designated area. But we are putting the cart before the horse, apparently.
Mr. Chairman, I think you answered the question correctly, and you were very clear. The issue is, our task is to look in the possibility of creating a 15 parish. Okay? That's what we're tasked with. We're not tasked with creating boundaries. We are not tasked with creating boundary. The issue with dealing with the law. I'm speaking, Member Jackson, have some manners and respect inside of here. I'm speaking. I'm
Member
speaking.
Member Jackson, allow Member Warmington to finish.
Asked by my colleague from Southeast.
I know from it, I know that Member Jackson came here today to be cantankerous and to disrupt this meeting. Please don't. Please.
Member Jackson, allow my colleague to describe me in that unfriendly way? Has been cantankerous?
Member Jackson.
Mr. Chairman.
Recognize Member Miller. And member, this is not a regular sitting of the committee. This is a town hall meeting, and I would urge my colleagues to carry themselves in a manner that is befitting of us as representatives of the people, seeking to hear from the people. Member Miller.
Thank you, Sir Chair. You have echoed the sentiments that I wanted to state a short while ago, Sir Chair, that, we have had the committee meetings from December, and at no point in time boundaries came into the meeting. Now this meeting is for the citizens of Portmore to hear their view in terms of, what would they envision Portmore to be as it becomes a parish. So we'll ask kindly, Sir Chair, we could just move on from this topic and entertain the citizens that we're here for.
Thank you very much, Member Miller. At this time, I recognize Mr. Ryan Strawn.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon. Oh, it's great to be here. My questions are for one with roots in what will be the 15th parish of Hope, the three primary benefits of Portmore becoming our 15th parish, for the knowledge of those who may not be so aware. If you could oblige me, please. Thank you.
Mr. Strawn, could you repeat?
Sure.
You came across a bit muffled just now.
Okay, better now?
Better.
Okay, perfect. My question, Chair, saying good evening to the panel again, is the three, if you could outline for us, or the panelists could outline for us the three primary benefits of Portmore becoming the 15th parish of Jamaica. And I'm asking as one with roots in a particular community there. Thank you.
The suggestion is that we take at least three sets of questions, and then we answer those questions. So first question from Mr. Strawn was three benefits. Okay. We are Miss Angela Ennis Cooper. Ms. Cooper, are you there with us? Okay, we go to Mr. Bancroft Stanley.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, members of the committee and members of the audience. Mr. Chairman, I am one of the view that there is no doubt that a parish would benefit Portmore. Are you hearing me? Yes, I'm saying that I am of no doubt that a parish would benefit Portmore. But at this time, Portmore doesn't have all the necessities in terms of infrastructural development to facilitate the status of a parish. So I would like to know if we would have to have parish status first before this level of infrastructure is put in place. For instance, there is only one fire station in Portmore, and it's a substation. There is no hospital. There is also a need for you to adjust the educational process, because, for instance, there isn't an office in Portmore from the Ministry of Education. There isn't an office from the Ministry of Education. In terms of the other level of infrastructural development, I would like to know if it cannot be done, or if Cabinet doesn't have such power to create those development and then could move on to further consideration without Portmore having parish status. If Portmore should have parish status at the moment, will be the only parish without a hospital, will be the only parish without a senior fire station, because what we have right now is a substation, and I can name quite a few infrastructural inefficiencies that is plaguing Portmore, and we won't be able to compete with any other parish. For instance, Portmore have a greater population than St. Thomas. It also have a greater population than Portland. But if you look at the kind of infrastructure in these two parishes, Portmore is nowhere near there. And the worst thing could ever happen to the community outside of the corporate area that have the largest set of employed intellectuals is for you to tell them that they are a parish without the necessary infrastructure, and they would have to go to the other parishes for these kind of service. Thank you very much for listening.
We're going to take Jennifer Lee at this time. Jennifer Lee, Miss Lee.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jennifer Lee from the All National Leadership Council. I must congratulate Mr. Chairman and the committee for putting out the information. I've been following it on YouTube and other places. But as Ms. Campbell Rodriguez said, I think that the ordinary person in the street might need to get it a little more of the information disseminated to them in language which they can understand, because I know that there are a number of persons who have concerns and who are asking questions. I have a few questions from some of the persons who have asked me. For example, who will take ownership for some of the infrastructural development in Hellshire, in Portmore. For example, right now in Sandhills, the Sandhills main road up to the Sandhills Vista, which is an NHT scheme, there is nobody at this point who have accepted full responsibility for that road. UDC, the PMC, NHT, NAA, nobody is taking responsibility. The road is in a deplorable condition. There's no sidewalk. Persons have been hit down on the road. Persons want to walk and to do all those sort of a thing. We need to know that if at this point it's not yet a parish, and the agencies are not taking responsibilities for various infrastructural development, will this be corrected when parish states? When Portmore becomes a parish, what will be the status of Hellshire, given the early conceptualization of what Hellshire should be? this is the first set of questions. We have some other things that we're looking forward to Portmore becoming a parish, and these things we put in place. For example, dealing with the environment, dealing with the economy. Healthshare has a lot to offer to tourism, to be one of those areas that can offer economic benefit to the persons in Portmore. We are also really concerned about the build-up of traffic, and it would appear as if sooner or later the toll road will be ineffective to carry the level of traffic which will be generated given the speed of development and the number of development taking place in Portmore, Healthshire, and the surrounding areas. We would love that you would be able to address these issues.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lee, for your questions. And I think we have had three persons asking a reason their point or asking questions. And we have with us a number of government agencies. And I must say that the questions or concerns raised so far were deliberated on during the earlier sessions. In fact, the National Work Agency spoke to the infrastructure, the road infrastructure development, and the plans for Portmore. And before I ask the agencies to come in at this time, I was want to remind members of the committee and to also inform the public of some of the discussion we had and the outcome as well. The National Work Agency, when they made their presentation, this committee raised the point as it relates to infrastructure and the improve the infrastructure. And in fact, they pointed to us that they have started a process. First of all, they recognize the need for us to improve the infrastructure in Portmore, especially at the points of entry and exit to Portmore. Access to the causeway, access to the to Caymanas, that exit at Caymanas, an entry point to Caymanas, the congestion, the associated congestion at those points. And the National Works Agency stated that they have started a process of improving the road infrastructure. Those of us who are familiar with Portmore would have seen the improvement in the vicinity of Bridgeport, Port Tennyson Road, leading to Nagohead. And also, they have indicated to us that in this year's budget, there will be a continuation of the improvement of the road infrastructure. They also spoke to upgrading, I should say, not improving, upgrading the road network all the way up to Elshire, dualizing that road from Nagohead going all the way through 85 to Elshire, and also major improvement work for what we call the I-95 in Portmore Parkway, leading out to Caymanas. And those of us who are familiar will say, yes, we are dumping the traffic faster at exit point or entry point. But you will recall that Member Warmington in his presentation to Parliament spoke about the improvements that will come on stream as relates to the bridge going across the river, the Riacoba River in the vicinity of the Mandela Highway and in the vicinity of Akiwak. And Member Warmington is here and he could shed more light on that. But we recognize the need for improved infrastructure, road network in Portmore. Member Jackson, let me just allow the representatives from different agents to expand and lend more clarity.
I was going to comment on the response you gave, because the question I heard and the response you gave, there was a sort of disconnect.
I'm not answering the question for your benefit, Member Jackson. I'm answering the question to remind members of what went on in the committee meeting. The National Work Agency is here, and I'm sure that the National Work Agency is equipped to answer the question as relates to road infrastructure and the concerns raised by the citizens of Portmore.
Just by way of order, Mr. Chairman, the meeting is for the committee to which the citizens speak. If you give a response on behalf of the committee,
Member Jackson,
Chairman, you
I was
respond on
reminded
behalf
the
of
committee.
And if I believe you or is inadequate, it's my duty as a member of the committee to make sure that we convey an adequate answer to the questions which are posed. And my intervention or attempt just now was nothing more than to do just that.
All right, so the National Work Agency, the representative of the National Work Agency, can you shed some more light as to the road network, the improvement in the road network for sections of Portmore? And that's an infrastructure in Elshire. And of course, Mrs. Lee raised a concern, waiting for NWA to shed some light on it, because they are with us today. The infrastructure in Elshire. Who's the representative? Ms. Lee raised also a very important point about the environment and tourism in Elshire. I believe that Mr. Peter Knight is here from NEPA, and I recall in his presentation that he alluded to preserving the environment and the economic opportunities within the Portmore area, especially in the Elshire region. Mr. Knight, are you with us still? Mr. Knight?
Yes, Chairman, I'm with you. Good evening to you all. I'm not quite sure what specific you would like us to comment on. Would you like me to just comment on what we placed before the committee?
Thank you very much, Mr. Knight.
Yeah, so Chairman, so we appeared before the committee, that is a team of us from the National Environment and Planning Agency. And in summary, we thought it useful to do a SWOT, what is called a SWOT analysis, the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat that we looked at. And we looked at those. I'm not going to go through them individually, but there are a number of opportunities that Portmore as a parish could benefit from. The development of vacant land into urban green space, access to the highway, access to the greater Portmore ponds and the sewage treatment systems, becoming a technology hub, a technology center, and also the existing industrial parks. And there are also a number of strengths that Portmore as a parish would possess. And then we outline some recommended considerations ranging from designation of a capital town center, administrative center, through to security and public safety, to transportation, to economic opportunities that we saw available, to tourism, to green space development, the green space system and waterfront development, entertainment and culture, a plan to deal with the unplanned settlements, or if you want to say a renewal strategy to be employed, how we could better organize, arrange housing, And then we dealt with, and I heard a question about the hospital and fire services and so on. So we had a plan how to deal with, suggested plan how to deal with the social infrastructure, as well as the physical infrastructure, and also food security. So we gave a comprehensive presentation and proposal to the committee, and we have since responded to issues concerning number of schools that would be required, probably the hospitals, what do we mean by the housing, let me say the housing revolution. But we did say that it was subject to Civil Aviation Authority, whether we go medium rise or high rise, because the flight path, we had to pay attention to that. So we presented a comprehensive plan, and we think that if the environmental and planning proposals and the strategies that we propose, we could have a smart parish, we could have a well-planned parish, and the development of a well-planned parish that we all could be proud of. So in a nutshell, Chairman, that's what we presented.
Member Campbell Rodriguez, then Member Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to go back to some of the questions that we were asked. The first person, I don't remember the name.
Recording in progress.
No, it wasn't Mr. Strawn. It was someone before.
Mr. Strawn asked the first question.
No, the one about the primary benefits. It wasn't.
Okay, Mr. Strawn asked that question.
Right, okay. So I just wanted to say that it comes back a lot to the things that Portmore people say that they want. And more than anything else, Portmore people talk about wanting a hospital. And when the Ministry of Health came to present to us, it was a question that was asked about Portmore needing a hospital in order to become a parish. And it was made clear that nowhere in anything is it stated that a parish needs to have a hospital. They have operated as such, but I will read from the minutes. Outside of guidance in terms of a policy directive, he could not opine as to whether or not this is a requirement for parish status. One of the things the Ministry of Health said to us is that there is consideration for another hospital in St. Catherine. And that was going to be decided by various factors. And because the consideration was also looking at Old Harbour, or whether they should expand the Spanish Town Hospital, or whether Portmore should get a hospital. It is many factors coming together to make that decision. However, I would submit, Mr. Chairman, that if you are a parish on your own, you have more lobbying power. You have a stronger footing to say, since the Ministry of Health has said Old Harbour, or expanding Spanish Town Hospital, or Portmore. My grandmother always said, pass and christening Pitney first. And if you are a part of the wider St. Catherine, why would the wider St. Catherine lobby for Portmore to get that hospital rather than central St. Catherine? And as such, I think being a parish, you can argue together stronger as a group. And that goes to Mr. Strawn's question. That's one of the benefits of being a parish. You can help to forge a direction for your jurisdiction if you're organized as yourself. Right now, you're an appendage to a bigger parish. And secondly, Mr. Strawn, it is an opportunity to manage more of your resources independently. Now you're operating as a part of a wider parish. When you get that status, you're able to manage the resources more independently. I will go to what Mr. Stanley asked, and he brought up the example of St. Thomas being smaller and having more facilities. Let us keep something in mind. And he used smaller in terms of size of population. I will again go to the minutes where the Ministry of Health stated clearly, no one in Portmore has to travel more than 10 miles for health care. There is Spanish Town Hospital, there is the Kingston Public Hospital. No one in Portmore has to travel a long distance to get health care. Now, you live in St. Thomas and you live up in the hills, it takes you hours to reach a hospital. Who has the greater benefit? It's about a location and how far you have to access. With the fire service, people of Portmore have more access to fire service than many other parishes. If you live in Wallingford, St. Mary, for example, how much longer does it take for you to get a fire truck to come to you than if you live in Portmore? And also, our chief medical officer, I'll go back to the health issue, she mentioned that Portmore will be getting a type 5 health center. One of the health centers will be upgraded as such, and it would offer more specialist care in relation to diagnostic and therapeutic services. The aim is to stop the practice where patients seek care at the emergency departments of hospitals. So the type 5 clinic will be doing most, I would say about 95% of what happens in an emergency room in a hospital can be taken care of by the type 5 health center. And Mr. Chairman, this is part of the reason I said we should disseminate some of this information we got so that people are aware, because I think it is a matter that they're just not aware of what the situation truly is.
Thank you very much, Member Rodriguez. Member Jackson,
No,
you have a question for Mr. Knight?
Yes. Mr. Knight, is he tuned in?
Yes, he just spoke.
Okay. I know. No, just spoke don't mean he's still tuned in. Don't know about that. Mr. Knight, I want to address the question directly to him.
Yes, I'm hearing.
Good to hear you, sir.
Good to hear you too, my friend.
I wasn't at the sitting. I was out on leave when you appeared before the committee, but I read the submission that you made, and which you, I think, summarized quite well just now. The question being posed, Mr. Knight, about Portmore becoming a parish, as to whether or not the parish, being a parish, will make for those things you highlighted just now become a reality. Or put another way, could they or can they be realized without a parish designation? Or is it a parish designation a prerequisite for those things becoming a reality?
Member Jackson,
no, the question was to Mr. Knight.
That question is inappropriate, especially the last part.
No, I am posing the question. You can't tell me, Mr.
It's
Chairman.
Inappropriate. I'm the chairman here.
I asked the question that I want to have answered.
But it's inappropriate. The last part of the question.
I am asking what is out of order about the question.
Member Jackson. Member Warmington, please. The last part of your question, Member Jackson, was a bit inappropriate. But I'll allow, you cannot put a public servant in a position like that.
Was in response to the point
No, Mr. Jackson, you cannot.
From a technical standpoint,
Mr. Jackson, Mr. Jackson.
No, I'm asking Mr. Knight as a technical officer.
Member Jackson, please. Mr. Knight, answer the appropriate section of that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, my response is simple, because when we came to the committee, we made it very clear that our objective was to provide the committee with a perspective as to how Portmore as a parish should be developed based on environmental and planning principles and so on. We made no proposal as to the pros and cons. We said quite clearly what our objective was. We want to provide perspectives. It is for the chairman and the members of the committee and the wider public to determine if the perspectives that we have put forward, if they would be good enough to be included
in an overall discussion point. So those are my answers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knight. The question as relates to the question raised by Mrs. Lee as relates to the infrastructure in Elshire is of a serious concern for the residents in that area, and that is something that whether Portmore becomes a parish or not needs to be addressed. Usually when you have developments of that nature, it is usually handed over to the local planning authority or the municipal council, corporation in this instance. And once the development is finished, completed, it is examined by the municipal corporation, the technical team. An assessment is done, and also a costing is done as relates to at least, if I'm not, at least two years maintenance costs and it is classified as the handing over fee and is paid to the municipal corporation. I am not too sure about the situation that exists in the Elshire area, whether development was handed over to the local planning authority or what. But that is the norm. And that is something that the councillors, the council, and the member of parliament as well, you know, because this is a problem that has been there for some time. Right, Member Jackson? And you have been member of parliament for some time. And in fact, the current mayor of Portmore was also the councillor for the Elshire division, and I'm sure he would have made representation as well, whether whichever party was in power as government. I mean, so you'd have had representation being made by both at both levels, the local and the central government level. I am not too sure of the situation, Member Jackson, but maybe you can help us here.
Well, just recently there was a meeting with both the UDC and Housing Trust and the leadership of Elshire, and that was one of the matters that came up. The response of the UDC then, and I think a letter was circulated just today by the UDC further to that meeting, which says simply that for the turnover, as you rightfully describe it, Chairman, to be effective, it requires the infrastructure to be at a certain standard for it to move, responsible to move from one entity, that is the UDC, to the local authority. The officer from the UDC was very frank in indicating that it comes down to having the resources to put the infrastructure up to the standard required for it to be turned over. Indeed, as everyone could appreciate, the municipality is reluctant to take over the responsibility for a less than infrastructure less than the standard that it should be in. So that's where the impasse is. What we can do.
Member Jackson, seeing that you have been there for some time now, can you just explain to us or educate us why was that community handed over to the council, whether it was the municipal council or when it was originally built out?
No, the truth is most of the infrastructure in the Elshire area was built many years ago and before the actual occupation of the area by residents, the roads and the limited sewage and so on. Over time, the road has deteriorated. The occupation of the area has been incremental. When you go to the far southern area like Sandhill area, which is the most occupied area to the south, the houses were sparse, the area was sparsely occupied. Now it's very different. And over time, that infrastructure quality has eroded. Now, for UDC to put it up to the standard that it should be, it was not issue many years ago when there was a few people living there and it wasn't that bad. But as I said, it has gotten worse over the years, and the costs for doing it, repairing it, has skyrocketed. And, you know, I've spoken to the general manager, UDC, about it prior to. You know their funding challenge. They are not on the budget, and they have to raise their funds separately. And that has been the challenge. So it will call an injection of capital from central government for them to fulfill that statutory requirement that you just spoke of for it to happen.
Thank you, Member Jackson, for that explanation. Member Warmington.
As it relates to the responsibility for roads and infrastructure in housing schemes, the issue is that local authorities require developers to put funds aside for a period for that local authority to repair those roads and what have you. But there's no obligation on the part of the local authority or the government itself to take over those roads, as the law is right now. When that fund or those funds are exhausted, that's where it's left. I came to Parliament here, I think it's 2012, with a private member's motion asking that government and government departments take responsibility for all housing schemes at the time when the first title is issued. So at that stage, you know that the government, whether it's central government or the local authority, will be responsible for maintenance of all the infrastructure, the drainage, the roads, the public parks, and all of these. During the debate, the then Minister Bobby Pickersgill asked for amendment to the resolution, whereby he says, I said to take over and to make those roads or infrastructure livable for the people in those schemes. Bobby Pickersgill, who was Minister then of Works, asked that I amend the resolution for it to be passed, because the government had more than us in opposition, to say not to make the roads livable at this stage, but to repair when funds are available. So it means 50 years down the road, the government can say there's no funds available. That private member's motion went to the committee. Which committee it again, Ms. Curtis? There's a committee, that committee? It went to the committee, parliamentary committee. The committee supported the resolution, the motion. It came back to Parliament, and Parliament accepted the recommendation of that committee that government will just assume responsibility for all of these roads. It went to cabinet. It went to the cabinet under Fitzjackson's government. And what they did, instead of taking decision, they sent it.
Chairman, why is the member
they sent it. Let me explain what happened. They sent it to Minister of Local Government under Ascot for them to review and send back a report to cabinet. Take back cabinet. The cabinet secretary then, who is still cabinet secretary, wrote to Mrs. Cook with a copy of what the decision of cabinet was. I got a copy. It never got back to cabinet. We asked repeatedly, and what is his name, Mr. Wilson, they had to call me and ask for a copy of the resolution because Ascot couldn't find it. I work here from cabinet. On all of this stage, I got again that one, and I asked for it to be sent to the Ministry of Works, that is in charge of most of these infrastructure, for it to be dealt with. It was never dealt with. And this is why these housing schemes and these development are without someone being responsible for it. I intend to raise the issue at cabinet, that it be revived, and government takes on this responsibility, because you have people buy houses and all this stuff, and you talk about responsible for them when they are paying taxes for their property. So I will be dealing with that itself. With infrastructure concern in Portmore, as NWA said, we are looking at several areas. So you have the Portmore Drive, whatever it is, the Portmore Parkway, what it is, going back into Elsha, that we intend to spend quite a lot of money on it this year. The Grange Lane also is included in the special program. We mentioned the bridge coming across to take you from Mandela, because as I said to the PM, the Prime Minister, we cannot spend hundreds of millions of dollars to develop a 6-lane highway and it's a parking lot in the night. So that will be taken across. I asked Member Jackson and his other colleagues from across there to ask the Portmore municipality not to put the Aki village there, because that was where it was designed to go. So I said, ask the mayor across there, he never did it. So then build Aki village. So he didn't assist us. So I'm moving further down.
Mr. On a point of order. The member never asked me to do anything.
No, Fitz.
He's not misleading now.
No, Fitz, you know I don't lie. I'm surprised at you.
Member Jackson, Member Warmington, point well thing.
No,
point well thing.
You know I don't lie.
Point well thing, Member Warmington. Member Warmington.
Oh, you said I didn't tell you it must be
Member Warmington and Member Jackson. Come on now. Gentlemen.
We have to see the member, and we can never agree. Because he's a mischievous fellow.
All right.
So we are working on this.
You're about mischievous, Member Warmington. So,
Chairman.
Remember, yes, Member Adil, but remember, we want to hear from the citizens. We don't want to be, going around in circles here.
Chairman, that's what I was really coming back to, because do you have a listing of how many persons are on?
Yes. I want to take the mayor of Portmore, Leon Thomas, at this time. Are you there? Mayor Thomas? Samantha Bowman. Samantha Bowman, are you still there?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mayor Thomas.
Thank you very much, and good evening to you and all the members in the House, and also to our listeners right across the length and breadth of Jamaica. One of the questions that I would want to ask, Mr. Chairman, we have to be a parish to get all these benefits that I'm hearing. Do we have to be a parish to benefit from what I'm hearing? And secondly, Mr. Chairman, the population of Portmore warrants an hospital, and I don't want no one to tell me that you have to travel less than 10 miles to an hospital. The population itself should indicate that we need an hospital. And the next thing, the Portmore City Municipality does not depend on the St. Catherine Parish Council for nothing. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So the benefit that we receive now is what a parish will receive, because we get our PRF just like any other parish, and we get equal share through the Ministry of Local Government to carry out any works that we are going to do in this municipality. What I would want to see, that we first look where the boundary of this parish will be, because if you are going to put something to us, we need to know where the boundary is. Then we work through the things, because the minister, as you said, can come and name the boundary, and when they name the boundary, there is no land space for all that is being promised to us to put in place in Portmore. I will take my seat and I will listen for the answers.
Okay, Mayor Thomas, we're going to take two more persons. Member Jackson, please. Before we attempt to answer those questions, I'm going to also ask the Ministry of Local Government to also prepare themselves to answer some of the questions, especially those coming from Mayor Thomas as relates to revenue and also other issues relating to local governance. This time we're going to take Kennard Grant. Mr. Kennard Grant.
Good evening. Are you hearing me clearly? Hello?
Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
All right. I just have a couple of things that I'd like to highlight. And I will start with definitely the boundary. I believe that if we are supposed to deliberate parish status, we must define Portmore. Where is Portmore? Where it exists, because certainly it's not existing in the cloud. So we have to identify what are we proposing to be in Portmore. And I wasn't comfortable with how it was dealt with at the beginning, that can be discussed after it becomes a parish. But one thing that is certainly clear in the act that you discussed earlier was a boundary, and it has to be defined before we can deliberate it being a status. Now, whilst we consider Portmore being a parish, and the mayor brought the situation to light earlier, majority of the lands that exist within Portmore now, up in the Hellshire Hills, are under reservation. Hellshire, as we know it, is one of the largest dry forest area, and they are under reservation by acts of parliament. So we can't necessarily look with the respect of developing Portmore without looking at what exists in Portmore now to accommodate all the amenities that we're proposing. Now, with respect to the senator's response, she articulated a lot of the reasons why they will tell us Portmore don't need a hospital. She said that currently people don't have to travel 10 miles before they can get public hospital assistance. And she also articulated that we will get strength in lobbying. Well, I believe that particularly what needs to be in Portmore needs to be determined by
Councillor Grant, let me just interject for a second. I was just advised that persons who are asking questions should turn on their cameras, that because this meeting is being streamed on PBCJ, and as such, dark screen or black screen is inappropriate.
Well, I'm not seeing the option here because you guys manage it completely. So I'm not seeing the option here to turn on my camera. Okay, join. Oh, yeah.
Continue, Councillor Grant. We will deal with it from this end.
Mute. All right, there you go. Right. So that was actually managed from your end. It wasn't me that did not allow it to be.
Continue, Councillor Grant.
All right. So with respect to the other thing that you were articulating, I have been participating in the chat, and I see where a lot of persons are asking for the SWOT analysis. We would love to see what are the strengths being articulated. Additionally, we would love to see what are the weaknesses. Because one thing I know for certain, with the exclusion of the judiciary boundaries. The only thing that a parish is definitely required to have under the law is a parish court. Everything else is not exclusive to being a parish. So if we want to develop Portmore, parish status is not necessarily the reason for it to be developed, but particularly the demand to service the population. So with that said, I would love for the first question in the first segment of questions to be answered. What are the three main reasons for this proposal of Portmore to be a parish?
Thank you very much. No, we want to take one more. I'm going to take at this time Markland Edwards. Mr. Edwards, are you there?
Yes, I am, sir.
It's on. You're seeing it here. Go ahead, Mr. Edwards.
Okay. I'm here. Okay, let me say a pleasant evening to you, Mr. Chair, Dr. Wheatley, and members of the Joint Select Committee, stakeholders, and of course, residents of Portmore. I want to say good evening. And, this is really a meaningful conversation that we're having in terms of Portmore becoming a 15 parish. And I'm listening, and I've been hearing the questions being asked over and over again, and the suggestion of having a hospital and that kind of stuff. And I heard member Cameron Rodriguez explaining to us earlier on that, if we could only hear from the different stakeholders, some of the things that they have put forward as it relates to things that we need to do to become a parish and things that we'll benefit from, then it might help to eliminate some of the questions, some of the issues and concerns, because Rome wasn't made in a day. The good Lord himself took a number of days and when he came out to creation, so we can't, if we sit here and to discuss and to find out why and we don't have this and we'll never get anywhere. Just like when Jamaica became independent. Look at where we are today. We didn't have certain things in place to begin with. And I heard Mr. Peter Knight earlier on, he spoke to an article I wrote back in December of 2020 of Portmore becoming a smart city. We've seen where this pandemic thrown us into a loop where we have to be operating from home. Now we're having a town hall meeting virtually. So one of the things that we can look at for Portmore is Portmore becoming a technology hub, a smart city where the residents can benefit in a major way. We don't have to leave our homes to go pay our bills as it relates to utility bills or even paying our taxes at the municipality office, at the tax office. So we need to look on the broader picture. Most of us, when we become homeowners, you might just get a quad down by Greater Portmore, but that's a start. And then you look and you realize that, boy, this one room alone can't help for me and my wife and my kids. Then you put another room on and you expand as you go along. So we need to look at the broader picture. And the broader picture is how we can make life better for not just us as residents now, but for the next generation to come. As I said before, we're living in a smart environment. And if we can get the information that was shared by different stakeholders, maybe some of the questions that are being asked right now, we would need to ask them, and we can just, have this thing becoming a reality. And as I know, as we go along, things can only get better if we just come to one conclusion that, hey, it's a win-win for everybody. It's nothing political. Everybody will benefit. So I just want to encourage my fellow residents of Portmore. See, when we had the ENDS program during the curfew hours in COVID, Portmore was a pilot project, and it worked well to the point now where we've extended the service to other parts of Jamaica. So I would love to see Portmore become the 15th parish. and to see the possibilities, because I know they're endless. And I heard Member Warmington spoke about road infrastructure, widening the roads and making things better for all of us. So I know for sure that the time we sit here and for other town hall meetings to come to decide if we're going to have a hospital or not, it might just be wasting our time. We just need to get the things that we will need, get started, and of course, as we go along, we will see the other things that we can put in place to make Portmore the place to be right here, right now, and the future to come.
Thank you very much, Mr. Markland Edwards. Member Campbell Rodriguez.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, because I want us I want the persons from Portmore who are joining to feel that we have been responsive to their questions. And as such, the issue of borders has been raised at least 3 times. And I just want to seek some clarity with the border situation. Now, the way Portmore, I'm visualizing Portmore because this is the place where I grew up, so I know Portmore well. We can't do anything from the side, and the 3 MPs from Portmore sit on this committee, so if my geography is wrong, just help me out here, please. The border can't pass Causeway, right, on one side. So it must include Passage Fort, the Mall, Fort Augusta, Back Road, right? Because those can't go into any other parish. Because
those are the most
sea.
southerly point.
Exactly. I don't know north, south, east, west very well. So that's why I've given the specific communities. Geography wasn't my strong suit. Then down the bottom, we know that we must go to Akiwalk, right? Right by Dyke Road. So the border that must be the border on that side. We also know that we can't cut off Hellshire and leave it because it is not adjoining to anywhere. So Hellshire must be in it and Greater Portmore. So the only point of contention must be after you pass Caribbean Estate and go around to Bernard Lodge, Clinton, Lime Walk. Am I missing any of those communities? Lime Tree. Right. So the question I have, Phoenix, all of those areas there, that's where the question lay. And I must ask the question, since the last councillor who spoke, Member Jackson, and one other person spoke, and Mayor Thomas, and the councillor for another division, Bridgeport, all raised the matter of boundaries. So I am asking this question, are we saying if we include Bernard Lodge, Phoenix, Clinton, and those areas, it swings the vote either way as to whether or not Portmore should be a parish? Hold on, Member Jackson. Let me finish.
So you're not bully here, man.
Or are we saying if we leave, are we saying...
Member Campbell Rodriguez, Member Jackson, you need to behave yourself, man. But your mannerism, man, your mannerism. No, your mannerism, Member Jackson, it's very distracting.
No, Mr. Chairman.
You know I'm a very fair chairman.
I said nothing at all.
Your mannerism, man. Let us respect our colleagues. No, Member Jackson. Member Miller. Just calm down. Calm down. Gentlemen, calm down, please. Just calm down. Member Jackson. Member Jackson.
And everybody jumping.
Member Jackson.
So it sounds like I've been ganged up on here this evening.
Continue, Member Campbell.
Yes. So the question, as I think we can agree, the only change that can come to the borders in Portmore is if we include the communities down to Bernard Lodge area. There's nothing that we can technically take off of Portmore. So we're looking at one little section that could be added in. Are we saying, Mr. Chairman, that if that section is added in or not added in, it makes a difference as to whether or not Portmore should be a parish? I ask because I've noticed 2 councillors, a member of parliament, and a mayor have raised the same issue. So I'm wondering what it is about that small section that is so troublesome as to whether or not those people get to be a part of Portmore or not get to be a part of Portmore would help to the determination as to whether or not Portmore becomes a parish.
Thank you very much, Member Campbell Rodriguez. And Member Daly, I'm going to allow you to speak, Member Daly. I'm going to allow you to speak. But I just want to remind members of this committee that we have to behave a particular way as representatives of the people. Even if you don't like to be like that, but we have to control ourselves. And the way and our mannerism when our colleague is speaking is very important. Very distracting as well. It can be very distracting. So before I make my comment, I'm going to allow Member Daly to speak.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I heard Member Senator said that there are some persons who have concerns about the boundaries, but I too have concern. I also have concern to find out in terms of a parish, where will the town be? Because if we are really looking at a parish, we should look at the layout of a parish. And we have to be serious. I've also heard, and I remembered very well when I was at council, that we looked at townships and we look at how we would be able to get a town, and we look at certain amenities that we would put in this town in order for us to classify it as a town. Now we are looking at a parish, and whether or not it is in keeping with having an area classified as a parish that we have certain amenities such as an hospital. We as legislators here should not be saying that without these things we can just go ahead, because I am certain that the people in Portmore is not desperate for a parish. They are desperate for development in their community, in their town, and therefore if we are going to have a parish, we should be able to civilizedly sit here and make recommendations and come up with solutions, so that when we do and when we finish here, the citizens and the country at large will believe that we really and truly consider exactly what the people want in Portmore and make sure that they get it before we anxiously look at a parish without putting in the necessary infrastructure. So arguing about the infrastructure should not be a problem. Arguing about the boundaries should not be a problem, because what we really want to come up with is a parish and an ideal parish, so that the citizens of Portmore will feel comfortable. For me, I don't live in Portmore, but if you were to ask me, I would prefer infrastructure anytime over naming me as a parish or naming the area where I live as a parish, and not to put in these amenities that will create the atmosphere of good living conditions.
Thank you very much, Member Terlang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have to ask myself, what is the fear of Portmore becoming a parish? Because it seems to me, Mr. Chairman, and this is the unfortunate thing, and this is why many, many years ago, from 2014, I have always maintained that Portmore belongs to the residents of Portmore, and that any growth, development and prosperity that will come to Portmore must be for the benefit of the residents of Portmore. It seems to me, Mr. Chairman, it is very unfortunate that the decision as to whether or not Portmore becomes a parish, that somehow political lines are being drawn, and that persons who support the Jamaica Labour Party are saying, yes, Portmore should become a parish, and persons who don't support the Jamaica Labour Party are saying that, well, they don't want Portmore to become a parish. And Mr. Chairman, with the greatest of respect to everybody who sits here, we cannot play politics with the lives of the residents of Portmore. I have come to have great respect, love, support for the people of Portmore. In the 5 years that I have been Member of Parliament, I have advocated for the development of areas of Portmore that were under serious neglect for the last 36 years prior to my breaking the spell of one political party's dominance in Portmore. You talk about communities that have no road. When we think of the community of Cedar Grove had no roads over there until Alanda Terland became Member of Parliament with the help of the government and Minister Warmington right there in terms of budgetary support. Communities like Watson Grove, no roads, places in Gregory Park, Newlands, several communities, Christian Gardens, Christian Penn, none at all, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, no, Mr. Chairman, the point I am making, Mr. Chairman, is that, Mr. Chairman, the point I'm making is that as it relates to the growth...
Member Jackson.
There's no point of order.
Member Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, as it relates to the growth and development... She has retracted. Members indicated that there's no point of order, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, if I continue, it is very clear...
Member Jackson, sit.
Chairman,
the member withdrew that point of order. She withdrew the point of order, Member Jackson.
No, Chairman, no, not at all.
I'm looking at her.
You
raised
Chairman,
a new point of order,
look
member.
at me and decide that I have changed my mind?
You know, this is not a joke matter, members.
No.
You have a point. Make the point of order, member. Make the point of order. Make the point of order, member.
Chairman, I don't want you to believe for a moment that I'm taking this for a joke. I saw the member making his point, but the member is now alluding to that there were no infrastructure, and he just made the point that we should not go down a political line. And therefore, I'm just asking the member to let us look.
Listen, where is the point of order? It's facts. You said roads.
I am on point of order now.
Member, just make the point of order for me, please.
Member, Chairman, I would prefer the member to stick to what we are discussing here, and do not look at what has gone before. And because, honestly speaking...
Mr. Chairman, that's not a point of order, Mr.
Listen.
Chairman.
You know,
Mr. Chairman, that's not a point of order. Point of order is clearly defined in the standing order. That's not a point of order.
Continue, Member Terlang.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, yes, so Mr. Chairman, it is clear that any decision that we have made in the last 5 years as it relates to the development of Portmore is a development or a decision that has been in the best interest of the people of Portmore. And Mr. Chairman, when we sit here and we've listened to all the stakeholders from all the different government agencies, Mr. Chairman, they clearly support Portmore becoming a parish. They also clearly, Mr. Chairman, set out that there is nothing negative about Portmore becoming a parish at all. Mr. Chairman, Portmore does not stand to lose, and I want my residents, I want all persons in Portmore to consider this. You stand to lose nothing by Portmore becoming a parish. You, however, stand to gain so much more by Portmore becoming a parish. And we should not make, because of political sides, people are going to talk about this or talk about that without looking at the clear objective, which is to enhance the growth and development of Portmore, giving Portmore residents more bargaining power that parish status give in their lives.
Before I'm going to allow the Ministry of Local Government, at this time, they are the lead ministry. And I believe at this time they should make.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking, sir, that what I have to say is just specific to what Member Terry Long said, and it will be lost after the Ministry of Local Government speaks, sir. I'm craving your indulgence. As a former representative in Portmore myself, I'm begging you, sir.
Member Campbell.
Thank you so much.
Ready.
And, I am happy, MP Terry Long mentioned what is happening in Portmore, and the point he made that Portmore has nothing to lose but much to potentially gain is an important one. But, Mr. Chairman, as you know, and most persons in here know, I taught mathematics for years in Portmore at Waterford High School. And so I had to go and look at the maths. And as constituted now, The St. Catherine Parish Council is made up of 41 divisions. Portmore has 12. The 12 from Portmore are a part of the 41. As sitting now, the Portmore Parish Council has 21 PNP divisions and 20 JLP divisions. Right now, that makes 41. Now, in Portmore, Mr. Chairman, if Portmore is taken out and Portmore has 12, which is 10 PNP held seats and 2 JLP held seats. If you take 10 from the 21 the PNP now have, they're left with 11. If you take 2 from the 20 the JLP has, we have 18. So, Mr. Chairman, are we making this about politics? Is it why all the members of the People's National Party today are fighting so hard against this? Because they're afraid of losing the St. Catherine Parish Council? We have to lift our game. We have to do what benefits the people of Jamaica, the people of Portmore, and not about politics and losing any parish council, Mr. Chairman. I just had to say it, Mr. Chairman, because I am the maths person, sir.
Member Campbell Enriquez,
I'm
Member
finished,
Jackson,
sir. I'm
Member
finished.
Daly. I am not going to allow this meeting to go down that route. I'm going to allow the Ministry of Local Government. No, members. I am going to allow the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development at this time to make an input. Member Jackson, respect the chair.
I'm trying to.
Kindly turn off your mic for me, please. Kindly turn off your mic, Member Jackson. For example, I'm going to allow at this time invite the Ministry of Local Government to shed some more light, because this is a local government matter. And I personally believe that any organization, any group of persons would want to have self-control over their destiny.
Mr. Chair,
but I am not going to at this time put my opinion on the table. I am going to allow the Ministry of Local Government, the representatives that are in attendance to, lend some clarity to some of the issues raised, especially as it relates to revenue. And I believe that the citizens of Portmore are very much concerned as it relates to revenue. We heard earlier the president of the group in Hellshire raising a point as it relates to our infrastructure. Why is it that the infrastructure in the Hellshire area is not being attended to? Those are questions that I'm sure citizens are concerned about. Just like they raised a very valuable question about the need for a hospital. I agree we need an hospital. But again, the Ministry of Health and Wellness spoke to that. They spoke to that about upgrading the facilities and also the plan in place to create or build a new hospital in the parish of St. Catherine. What we need to do is to lobby and ensure that that new hospital comes to Portmore. That's how we work together as a team, Whether you live in Portmore or not, you'd want to see, despite the fact that we are conforming to the international standard of the distance from a hospital, person living no more than certain miles. I don't remember, but we are at least not more than 10 miles. We would want it. So what we need to do is to lobby for this new hospital to go to Portmore. I know member one time we want to lobby for it to go to Olaba, but I would rather it go to Portmore. The Ministry of Local Government.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and the residents of Portmore and the wider Jamaica. My name is Sophia Knight. I'm the Senior Legal Officer. I've been asked to make a few comments and then ask the other members of the team to respond more pointedly to your questions concerning revenue. And perhaps we'll also shed some light about planning and development from the ministry's perspective. And so I want to start out by saying As it relates to Portmore, the proposal for Portmore to become the 15th parish, the legislative framework is there to support administratively Portmore becoming a parish. Certainly, from the local government perspective, we already have in place in the Constitution. Local government is enshrined in the Constitution. As it relates to our strategic laws, there is a Local Governance Act which sets out the governance framework, and this Portmore then would transition from a city municipality to a municipal corporation. Certainly, there are certain regulatory functions that the city municipality already carries out, and certainly will be better able to or will be strengthened given the parish status. So there are functions such as regulatory functions in terms of oversight, local economic and social activities, promoting, spearheading, and coordinating local sustainable development. There is this source certainly to participate in urban renewal, rural and community development, engage in mitigation and recovery, as well as emergency management and responses within their area of jurisdiction. Concerning financing and financial management, the legislative framework is also in place. There is a Local Government Financing and Financial Management Act of 2016. And so the Portmore City Municipality currently would operate within the confines of the financial management mechanisms, but certainly as a parish that will continue. And so what we have is there are prescribed laws, prescribed provisions, I should say, as it relates to operational budget, capital budget, certainly making provisions for statements of financial position and budgeted cash flow statements. There's a requirement for a 4-year strategic plan and budget. And more importantly, this strategic plan and budget, when it comes to financing for the parish, should it become a parish, is that you have to have a statement of objectives of local authority, the nature and scope of the activities to be undertaken by the local authority are to be set out, and the local authority is required to set out clearly what are the commercial, social, and regulatory activities to be undertaken. There has to be justification in respect of the capital budget, so not just to put in place plans for capital development, but to justify the budgets. Performance targets, and there are other measures by which the performance of the local authority may be judged in respect of its objectives. And most importantly, to operate within the confines of national policies and priorities and be consistent with accounting standards. So with respect to the financing, there are opportunities for own source revenues and self-financing. But because the question was raised in particular about the sources of revenues and the parochial revenue fund, I'm going to introduce Mr. Rupert Price to speak more on the PRF, which is the Parochial Revenue Fund, and generally revenue sources for the Portmore. Thank you.
Very much, Ms. Knight. Go ahead, Mr. Price.
Good evening, Chairman, and good evening, members of the committee, and good evening, residents of Portmore and those listening island-wide. I'm here to speak on the revenue resources. There are 4 types of revenue resources. There are the property taxes, the road maintenance, own source revenue, and funding from the consolidated fund. These are the funding that support all municipal corporations. The consolidated funds that are received by the MCs are funding from central government, which helps with their administrative support. The property taxes are funds that are charged for those lands that are owned and operated by owners within the different MCs. These taxes, which are collected by tax admin, 100% of those taxes remain within the MCs. As it relates to road maintenance, 25% of the amount collected within each parish remains within the parish. And then the remaining 75% is pooled together And this amount is then allocated based on the total length of road in each MCs versus the combined island-wide network length of road. And that amount is added and then allocated to the MCs. As it relates to own source revenue, each MC would offer services which they charge a fee for, such as transportation centers, building fees, and these are owned by the MC. So all those funds remain within the MCs.
Mr. Price, let me just use Chairman's privilege to ask a question before we allow the Ministry to complete their presentation. You know, I've been hearing that if Portmore becomes a parish, that the revenue will be significantly, if they are separated from St. Catherine, the Greater St. Catherine, that the revenue will be reduced. Is there any truth to that?
No, I don't have any data to support that.
Please, members, please. I am the chairman. I just use a little chairman privilege there. For clarity. So I know that is a question that is out there and it just came to me and I just asked it. Can the Ministry of Local Government continue at this time, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask Ms. Simone Barrett. She's on. She will be presenting some aspects of her presentation that we would have made some weeks ago as it relates to planning and development. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm not hearing her. Perhaps she's having some difficulty. I know she was traveling and is on. So we will remain and we will await any further questions. And then if there are specific questions to some of our team members, then I will invite them. I believe we should have Jamaica Fire Brigade on and NSWMA, so I'm not so sure if there are any questions in that regard.
Can you hear me, Ms. Knight?
Yes, certainly. Please connect. Certainly.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for taking the time out for us to engage in this forum. All right, from my perspective, from the planning perspective that I'll be focusing on for the period for over the last 11 years, Portmore has issued over 5,547 building permits. This is evidence of the type of activity in terms of development that has been happening in Portmore. And in fact, in terms of the approval levels, in terms of building permits within the Portmore City Municipality, it far exceeds that of several parishes or several other jurisdictions that are assigned parish status currently. In fact, Portmore, in terms of building approvals, is among the highest in terms of building approvals, second only to the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation and St. Catherine. And persons may be somewhat concerned to say, well, Portmore is developing at an alarming rate, and what type of plan is being put in place then to accommodate this type of development or to guide this type of development. Based on the requirements of Section 21 of the 2016 Local Governance Act, all municipal corporations are required to prepare local sustainable development plans. Local sustainable development plans are essential to guiding development. They guide the parish in terms of the economic components, social components, and all the requisite services now that are being requested by the citizens of Portmore. So this plan is now currently being worked on by the Portmore City Municipality, which is essential to guiding the parish on a path that will be sustainable in terms of its development, and for accommodating the growth or the needs that are expected to arise. Because since it is a plan, it's not just planning for what currently exists or the issues that currently exist, but it foresees further down the road, the next 10 years or thereabouts, that the next 10, the next 20 years, whatever changes that the parish is estimated or anticipated to undergo. So this plan is mandated by the Local Governance Act. So in reality, the local authority cannot just start and stop this plan. They are required to follow through on it, which the team there at the municipal corporation has been working actively, in terms of completing the local sustainable development plan. So in terms of the concerns that the citizens have, there is a plan that is currently being worked on to facilitate and support the needs for infrastructure, economic development, traffic management, the social and environmental components, which the plan will essentially cover and guide in terms of development and social protection and provision for amenities within the parish. So there is this framework that currently exists. It must be noted also, or I perhaps should have said this before, the population of Portmore is one that far exceeds that of so many other parishes. Indeed, it is higher than the population of a Hanover, of a Trelawney, of a Portland. So the Portmore can actually be assigned parish status, and while the plan is currently now being prepared to support all of what is required then to ensure that the parish runs efficiently and that the needs of the residents are adequately catered to. Thank you, Ms. Knight. This would complete my section.
Question for Mr. Price.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett.
Member Jacks, you wanted to ask a question, right, of Mr. Price?
Mr. Price, you had indicated in response to a question about if Portmore becomes a parish, whether there will be any loss of revenue to the new parish. Could I ask the question, if Portmore becomes a parish, would it automatically gain any revenue, and in what particular areas would that automatic increase in revenue be in or for?
Good night again, Chairman, colleague. Yes, Member Jackson. The question asks if whether or not Portmore will gain any increased revenue becoming a parish. Well, as it stands, they will not lose nor gain as it stands now. However, depending on as you said, an increase in the boundaries, which would therefore lead to an increase in the road network, that would result in an increased revenue from that side. But as it stands now, based on how it is, they would not have an increase in revenue.
Thank you.
So the point, Mr. Price, is that with the current boundary of Portmore, there will be no net increase or decrease in the revenue flow to the municipal corporation, correct?
Correct.
But if the boundary of Portmore should increase, you will see an increase in inflows, revenue, namely through the property tax be collected because you're collecting more property taxes, and of course the increase in the parochial revenue fund because of the increase in road network. But I believe though, while we may be concerned about revenue, I think all the councils, whether you're thinking about St. James, we need to become more innovative in our approach. I think that is something that the councils need to consider, becoming more innovative and develop on their own source revenue. That is something that we need to do. And I'm speaking as a former councillor. That is something that we need to do now, thinking ahead and becoming more innovative. I'm sure former Councillor Daly would agree with me as well. We need to be more innovative. We
Mr.
have
Chairman.
4 former councillors sitting here. We need to become more innovative. If we want to represent the people, we need to become innovative. We need to tell the people, how are we going to increase revenue flow? Whether it's Portmore, whether it's St. Catherine, whether it's any parish, we need to become innovative. And that's the approach that we need to take. You know, we go there looking for the vote. This is our plan. You know, that's the approach we need to take. You know, and cut down on the parties and approach. Come with real plans.
Mr. Chair, I completely agree with you, and I just want to seek clarification because as a former councillor, I may have forgotten. But Mr. Chairman, and someone from local government can help me here. The registration of motor vehicles, how is that money shared in the parish council? Because my understanding is it goes across the parish based on the person who last presented from, someone who presented from local government spoke to it. But my understanding is that money more will go to Portmore because relative to the rest of the parish, Portmore has a larger number of persons registering cars. I could be wrong, you know, because the brain is so good. But I remember that being presented to us from the local government. So to say nothing is to be gained by Portmore is maybe a little misleading.
Before Mr. Price, I'm going to allow Mr. Price to answer the question. But let me just clear the question a little bit. I think Mr. Price, the member, is asking, as it stands now, funds that goes into the parochial revenue fund, is it a measure of the road network within a particular area, or is it as a result of the motor vehicle license, the percentage of that, or the number of persons who reside in a particular area and pay their property tax and use that particular address? Does the money go towards that parish? Say, for example, if you live in Portmore, you register your motor vehicle in Portmore, then that funds goes to Portmore, or it goes to St. Catherine, and then say it is, divided between St. Catherine and Portmore. I think that is the question Member Campbell Rodriguez wants to ask. I don't know if
that's a question. That's a question.
Mr. Price.
So, Mr.
How
Chairman,
do we divvy up that money?
I'm sorry, right, Mr. Chairman, while he's answering that, could he also answer as it relates to the property taxes as well? Because the property taxes would become a part of the parochial revenue fund as well. So if you could clarify that as well.
Thank you again, Chairman and members of the committee. So as it relates to the road maintenance, right, 25% of the amount collected within the parish, which is for the residents of Portmore, is set aside. And then the remaining 75%.
So, Mr. Price, so the question is, how do you determine whether the person resides in Portmore or Linstead or the rest of the Greater St. Catherine? I think that is what they want to understand. So explain, if possible, how you come about calculating that. You said that 75% of the motor vehicle license goes towards the council. Is it as a result of the address that is used to register the motor vehicle? So, for example...
Yes, as a result of the address.
Okay.
Is it 100% goes towards the address? Just help me here.
No, 25%.
Okay, so then technically, if I'm understanding you correctly, if Portmore is its own parish, more of the money that is spent to register vehicles will go to Portmore, because we know as a fact that Portmore has more vehicles than any other section of St. Catherine. Am I correct? Am I correct?
One second, please, because I don't have the data to say based on the number of residents in Portmore versus no residents in St. Catherine who, if they use their address in Portmore versus that of St. Catherine. But what we do know, TAJ has that data, right? And they does the calculation in terms of the allocation of the funding.
Let me ask a trick question. What percentage of the revenue that comes from property tax and motor vehicle license, what is the relative share between St. Catherine and Portmore? You don't have to give me the actual money, but percentage-wise.
So for the property taxes, the amount for Portmore stays within Portmore, and for that for St. Catherine stays within St. Catherine. However, as it relates to the road maintenance now, the amount registered for 25% remains within Portmore, 25% remains within St. Catherine, and then now 75% is pooled together and then allocated based on the length of road within St. Catherine and Portmore.
So if Portmore becomes a parish, they get 100% of their money. It's a yes or no. We don't need to have the actual figures. If Portmore becomes a parish, it gets 100% of its money instead of the 75% it now gets. Am I correct?
No, because
the 25. Sorry.
Right, they get
Remember,
the 25%.
Jackson, that is not the formula. The formula is
no.
Sorry, see, you know, my apology, Member Jackson. Member Campbell Rodriguez, the formula is that 75% goes directly to the municipal corporation, and the remaining 25% goes into a pool.
No, other way around. 25%.
25.
And then 75% goes into the pool and then allocated based on the length of road within the parish.
So the question is, St. Catherine in this instance would benefit more
if it
from
stays
this formula. St. Catherine will benefit more from this formula rather than Portmore.
Yes.
And if I ask a question, the difference in support revenue for parochial revenue fund and property taxes. Let us take the road maintenance. What is the relative? What's the comparison? Does St. Catherine get 5 times as much money than Portmore as it is now? On a monthly basis, when you look at the amount of money that the Ministry of Local Government sends back to St. Catherine relative to Portmore, explain that in terms of the disparity in terms of how many times more does St. Catherine get relative to Portmore?
All right.
The reason why I ask is to see if Portmore on its own would get a greater share of the pie. And they are currently getting correct.
All right. Currently, yes, St. Catherine would have been receiving far more than Portmore, as you said, based on the formula. And so they are currently getting more than they're getting the land share.
Even though Portmore is probably paying more taxes as a geographical region than the rest of St. Catherine. So I go back to the question originally asked by my colleague. Will Portmore benefit financially as a parish versus the current situation based on what we just discussed?
Remember, Mr. Price, I don't need to answer the questions, but thank you for lending some clarity. We have quite a number of persons, members, listen, yes, we have quite a number of persons who have indicated they want to speak. But this is a very lively discussion. And even though we started off a bit rocky, with members getting a little bit out of hand, Member Jackson, Member Warmington in particular, I'm naming those 2 members. So next week I do hope that those 2 members will behave. You see, there you go again, Member Jackson. Members, you know, we are going to cut the meeting at this time. And because of time constraint, we have gone over 18, 19 minutes over. And some members, we're going to continue the discussion and deliberation next week, Thursday, same time, same place, and we're inviting residents of Portmore and the general public to participate, not only the political representatives from both sides. Because if you look at the questions that came, really it is the political representatives from both sides hogging the mic. Both sides hogging the mic. And so let me thank the team here at Parliament, as well as the representatives from the different agencies, the persons who listened and asked questions, and of course, members of the committee. At this time, members, seeing that we do not have any other business, and we have already indicated the date and time of the next meeting, can I have a motion for us to adjourn? Moved by Member Daly, seconded by Member Davis. Those in favor, the ayes have it.